Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. If ever there was a time for stories, Christmas is it. This week in our time together, I hope to share with you some Christmas stories and legends as we celebrate the birth of our Savior. So first, the disclaimers. I didn't write these stories, and in fact, most of them come from a person named William R. White, and I plan to present them as he presents them. It's also important to note that these are stories. They aren't true, and they speak to us in lighter ways. So this week, sit back and enjoy these legends and stories. Today's story is called A Legend for Christmas, and it was adapted from a German legend and is similar to some stories written by Leo Tolstoy. In a large Midwestern city, a little child wandered through the streets on Christmas Eve, gazing at the busy people rushing back and forth, arms filled with presents. Everyone seemed happy. Everyone seemed to have a destination. Everyone except the little child. As he walked, the bitter cold nipped at his cheeks and bit at his bare fingers. This was no night to be out alone. He must find a place to stay. He turned down a boulevard dotted with large homes, the kind where the yards are imprisoned by iron fences. Mustering his courage, he walked to the door of a very attractive house and peered through the curtains at the gaily decorated Christmas tree. Inside the house, the children were playing hide and seek, though they paused every now and then to shake the presents that had their names on them. The little child stood on tiptoe and pushed the button that rang the bell. Soon a tall boy opened the door and gazed down at the youngster. "I'm sorry," he said. "Our father is not home, and he would not like to have anyone upset our Christmas Eve." The door closed slowly, almost apologetically. The little child tried another home. This time a stout woman shouted at him, "Get off our property, and I mean now." The wind seemed as angry as the woman when the young child reached the unsheltered sidewalk. He decided to try a street where the houses were a bit smaller, hoping the people were more friendly. On this street, he was greeted by a woman who was afraid he would bring germs into the house, and a father who said there wasn't enough even for his own children. But mostly he was greeted by silence. People simply looked at him, shook their heads, and sadly closed the door. There must be some place in this great city for me, he thought, as he stumbled through the dark streets. Now he passed houses with fewer lights, houses much smaller in size. At the end of the street, he stopped at a small cottage with no curtains. It was easy to see into this tiny home. On a table sat a small tree without lights. Near the fireplace, a mother read to her two small children. Her daughters sat on her lap while her son snuggled close to her feet. "Mommy," the little girl cried out, interrupting the reading, "someone is at the door." "It's just the trees," the little boy assured them. Before the mother could continue, the noise was heard again, and all of them rushed to the door to see what had made the sound. There in the doorway stood a little child, shaking in the cold. The mother picked him up and pressed him tightly to her breast, even as she carried him to the living room. "Quickly, warm some milk," she called to her son as she rubbed the numb fingers between her hands. Pushing his tangled hair back, she tenderly kissed the child on the forehead and whispered, "We are delighted that you have come to share Christmas with us." For nearly an hour, the four stood around the fire until feeling began to return to the frozen body of the little stranger. When their guests seemed to be warmed, the little girl said, "Finish the story, Mommy." Agreeing, the mother placed the little girl on her lap and opened the book. Suddenly, a powerful light began to flood the room. The small family turned to see the little child transformed before their eyes. The light from his face became so bright that they were forced to turn their heads. Then the light left the room, and as the family rushed to the door, they watched him ascend, until all that was visible was a star that shone brightly over their house, bathing the entire area in light. The boy was the first to break the silence. Was it the Christ child, Mother? He asked. The mother simply answered, yes. It is said that each Christmas, God sends his Son wandering through the streets of some city in our land, seeking a place to be warmed. This Christmas, look around you for those in need. Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.